In the early spring of 1912, as the North Atlantic chill began to lift, the city of Belfast stood proud. Docked in the Harland and Wolff shipyard was a marvel of modern engineering, the RMS Titanic. Workers, engineers, and onlookers gathered daily, marveling at the size and grace of the vessel. It was more than a ship. It was a floating palace. Inside, mahogany-paneled hallways, sparkling chandeliers, and plush carpets lined the grand staircase that would soon carry the footsteps of hundreds. While the ship rested in harbor, excitement stirred across Europe and America. The Titanic wasn't just a voyage. It was a dream about to unfold on the high seas. On April 10, 1912, from Southampton, England, families, dreamers, and dignitaries boarded the Titanic. First-class passengers, like John Jacob Astor and Molly Brown, admired the fine china, marbled Turkish baths, and lavish suites. Third-class passengers clutched tightly to their few belongings, their eyes wide with hope. For many, Titanic wasn't just a journey. It was the beginning of a new life. At the docks, tears were shed, final waves exchanged. Children peered from railings, their small fingers gripping cold steel. Mothers adjusted bonnets. Fathers scanned the towering ship. A whistle blew, and with a deep, rumbling growl, the Titanic slowly pulled away from the dock. It glided into the open sea, bound for New York. The first few days at sea were calm. The Atlantic shimmered under a soft spring sun, and the Titanic moved gracefully through gentle waves. Inside, laughter echoed through dining rooms. Couples danced to soft music. In first class, conversations buzzed about politics, wealth, and the promise of America. Meanwhile, third-class passengers played accordions and shared bread in tight quarters, their spirits high despite the simple fare. Children chased each other across narrow corridors, giggling. Captain Edward Smith, a seasoned sailor with a white beard and calm demeanor, walked the decks. He was respected by all. Crew members' insured service was flawless. Everything seemed perfect. On April 13th, the weather cooled. The sea turned glassy, eerily calm. Some passengers remarked on the stillness. Sailors knew such silence often preceded danger. Telegraph operators received iceberg warnings from nearby ships. "Proceed with caution," they said. But Titanic, confident and proud, sailed forward at nearly full speed. The Marconi room buzzed with activity, messages flying back and forth across the Atlantic. But amid the flow of personal messages from passengers, some iceberg warnings were delayed or overlooked. By evening, stars lit the sky like diamonds. The moon was absent, and just below the surface, great towers of ice drifted silently. At 11:40 p.m. on April 14th, the lookout shouted, "Iceberg, right ahead." The bell rang 3 times. The crew sprang into action. The ship turned hard to port. Engines reversed, but it was too late. The Titanic scraped along the side of the iceberg. A shudder ran through the decks. Fine china rattled. Passengers stirred in their cabins. Most didn't understand what had happened. There was no loud crash, only a deep vibration, like the sigh of a giant. Below deck, seawater began rushing into the forward compartments. The unsinkable ship had been mortally wounded. Captain Smith inspected the damage. The truth was grim. 5 compartments were flooding. The Titanic could float with 4. But 5? Impossible. Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, confirmed it. Lifeboats were uncovered. Crew members, many untrained in emergency drills, began waking passengers. Confusion turned to panic. Families gathered, some dressed hastily, while others refused to believe the danger. There weren't enough lifeboats. Only 20 for over 2,200 people. It was a fatal oversight, one masked by overconfidence. The band, led by Wallace Hartley, assembled and began to play soothing music. The cry went out, women and children first. Lifeboats were lowered into the dark water. Some were only half full. Many passengers didn't want to leave the safety of the large ship for a small boat in the icy sea. But the ship was dying. Lights flickered. Cold wind swept the decks. Crew members urged people to hurry. Mothers kissed their husbands goodbye, tears freezing on their cheeks. From a lifeboat below, people looked up at the massive ship. It still sparkled with lights. It looked strong, but they knew it was sinking by 2:10 a.m. The Titanic's stern lifted from the water. The great ship broke apart, the rear rising steeply into the night sky. Screams filled the air. Then, silence. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic disappeared beneath the waves. Over 1,500 souls were lost. Only a few lifeboats returned to search the freezing waters. A field of lifebelts floated. The sea was still again, as if nothing had happened. At dawn, the RMS Carpathia arrived. Survivors, shivering and silent, were pulled aboard. Mothers cried for missing children. Widows stared blankly at the sea. Newspapers around the world reported the tragedy. Titanic sinks, over 1,500 dead. Questions were asked. How could such a great ship fail? What lessons could be learned? The Titanic became legend. Movies, books, museums, and memorials were created. But beyond the myth were real people, real lives lost, real families broken. And yet, something about the Titanic still captures hearts, a symbol of human ambition, hope, and fragility. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine that grand staircase, the soft echo of music, the ocean calm and wide, a ship gliding peacefully, forever sailing through dreams. Good night.